Hello everyone! In this video, we are going to briefly explain our game. The game is called 1948 and goes back to when Palestine was occupied by a group of people. So we decided to go for the date to make it simpler. As for the concept of the game, we went for something similar to Monopoly, which we played in class for a couple of weeks, and who does not know Monopoly, it is a real estate game. Our board game is a release and real estate game. Our idea is to release those cities that were occupied, starting from the year 1948, and by making it fun, we linked it to Monopoly, as we got a post-review on the idea of our game from some colleagues and friends. The genre of our game is basically historical, and for the theme I can say it can be power. In addition to focusing on various subjects like war, politics, romance, or social issues, the historical genre can span a vast range of historical eras, from ancient civilizations to more modern times. Readers can better comprehend the people and events that influence the world we live in. By reading historical fiction, which has the capacity to bring the past to life. Depending on the difficulty of the game and the playing abilities needed, board games can be played by players of all ages, while certain board games are better suitable for teenagers or adults. Others are specially made for younger kids. 1948 is suitable for ages over 16, I would say, because of the complex story and rules of it.
Considering the importance of the Palestinian cause for a global understanding of politics and justice, we think that a gamified model of the occupied land would help to be an introduction for unfamiliar people to expose them to what happened there and what's still happening today. Overlaying this story over a game similar to Monopoly thus makes for an interesting gameplay, while providing a certain educational value since the context has been changed from a commentary on capitalism to a commentary on both capitalism and geopolitics. To acquire land tiles, players must collect weapons and ammunition. Once enough has been acquired, and the land has been freed by the player, they can build houses on them with in-game money, which can be increased by players landing on each other's houses in-game. This dual currency approach increases complexity and adds a unique flavor to the game, while staying true to the story of occupation and freeing occupied lands. In a real-life Palestine, it is only after the people can free their properties and assert their ownership that they can build on them and reside in them. This is a grueling process involving endless court proceedings and systemic exclusion through and through. We think that due to the increasing interest in social justice and the familiarity of our game's existing mechanics, that there is potential for it in the marketplace.
Now, we'll go over the basic rules and key game loops and mechanics of the game to help you get started. To start the game, each player chooses a token and places it on the pass-by, and each player is given 2,880 shekel. The player with the highest roll of 2 dice goes first. On each turn, the player rolls the dice and moves their token to that number of spaces. Depending on the area they land on, they may have to pay rent to another player, draw a chance card, pay taxes or fees, or even go to jail. If a player lands on a chance space, they must draw a card from the corresponding deck and follow the instructions on the card. These cards can either benefit or harm the player's position in the game. If a player lands on the go to jail space, they must go to the jail space on the board and wait for their next turn to roll doubles to get out. If a player does not roll doubles within 3 turns, they must pay a fine to get out of jail. The goal of the game is to accumulate as much wealth as possible, and the best way to do that is by buying and developing properties. If a player lands on a released city, they have the option of releasing it at its listed requirements. After releasing a city, a player can develop it by building houses or hotels on it. This raises the rent they may charge other players that land on their properties. Key game loops and mechanics. One key game loop in Monopoly is the buying and developing of properties. As players acquire more properties, they can charge higher rent and earn more money. Players can also choose to upgrade their properties by building houses and hotels, which increases the rent they can charge. Another important game mechanic is the concept of bankruptcy. If a player runs out of money and cannot pay their debts, they are out of the game. This adds an element of risk and strategy to the game, as players must balance their spending and investments with the risk of bankruptcy. Tax parking. One of the most well-known elements of Monopoly is the free parking space. This space does not have any effect on gameplay, but players can collect money that has been paid as fines, taxes, or other penalties, and place it on the free parking space. When a player lands on free parking, they collect all the money that has been placed there, making it a desirable spot to land on. In this part, I will be exploring the game's theme, game world, and narrative, as well as the stories that players create as they play. Part number 1, Theme and Game World. 1948, it is a war game. The game takes place in a fictitious city called Palestine, and players move around the board to release the occupied cities and develop them so that they can collect rent and build houses and hotels. The game world is represented by the game board, which is designed to look like the map of the city of Palestine. The properties on the board are named after real streets and locations in the city, adding to the realism of the game. Part number 2, Narrative and Emergent Player Story. The emergent player story in Monopoly is one of the game's most compelling features. As players make decisions about their investments and interact with other players, they create their own unique stories within the game. Some players may become ruthless landlords, collecting exorbitant rent and bankrupting their opponents. Others may take a more cooperative approach, working with other players to build a profitable real estate empire. The emergent player story is what makes Monopoly such a timeless game, as each playthrough can result in a different story.
For the playtesting, we tried to bring out our game as soon as we can, but we had some delays. We made our friends play it and test it out. When making the game, we did not feel like having mistakes, but when playtesting came in, we realized that there is mistakes needed to be fixed. Playtesting is a process of testing a game or a prototype by having people play it and provide feedback on their experience. Playtesting is an important step in the game development process because it helps identify issues or areas for improvement before releasing a game to the public.
To run playtest sessions that both you and your testers can actually enjoy, have a plan going in. Never forget that there's a huge difference between playing your game and playtesting your game. You want to go into this thinking like a scientist. You want to have a hypothesis, have a question in mind that you're trying to answer, and then you're paying attention to the information and the data, and you're able to focus on that one thing that you're testing, that you're trying to figure out. Does combat take too long and create too much downtime for the other players? Is the game too lucky? Does the economy create some weird choices that you aren't actually trying to create in the gaming experience? Whatever it is, think through, what am I actually trying to figure out? What am I testing for?
And by that, we reached to the end of our video. We hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching.